for another week, looking to explore crazy political topics and get you guys caught up on the weekly political news and our progressive perspective of it. Perspective, Jesus. So, yeah, as you can tell, it's been a while since we've been back. So, we're looking forward to a great show. We have a lot of topics for this week, and we're looking to dive real deep into them and not waste any time. So, with that being said, I'll go ahead and give it to Seth.
Yeah, as he said, our weekly stream is kind of turned into a bi-weekly stream, once every 2 weeks or so. Once we actually get around to, we're just busy. We're busy people, just doing the Lord's work out there.
Yeah, never too busy for you guys, but
Never too busy.
Yeah, we'll find a way.
Oh, it's gonna be a lot more frequent. We're gonna be
Yes.
hustling out there, posting to Spotify, posting to YouTube. It's gonna be some good shit.
Yeah, definitely. And we're a late night show, so we don't expect a lot of people to be up watching us live, but we do get a lot of feedback the next morning when we repost. So we continue to put out content for you guys, put out our perspective of what we think, and hopefully we make you guys proud and we just keep on going.
Yeah, I'm expecting it's not going to get any quieter this year. I mean, it's election year. 2024 is bound to be another crazy election cycle. Nobody's expecting anything other than that. I mean, literally any single outcome is going to be wild.
I know. I just feel like this year has lost a lot of momentum.
In which way?
Momentum, like there's just not a lot of excitement on either side.
Oh, like enthusiasm. Yes.
That's the word. Yeah, enthusiasm.
Yeah, no, they're not like happy. Everybody's terrified.
Yeah, everybody's just like, let's get to the point of like, let's get to the point. We already know who the two people are going to be. And,
well, we don't even know that. We think we do, but literally any single day could change.
Yeah, you're right. Every single day could change, but for the most part, I think a lot of people figure it's going to be.
As far as people running for election, we know who's going to be chosen. Now, who's going to stick through it? Who's going to be? I mean, I guess we know now Trump is not going to be barred from running because it's a Supreme Court decision. That has now recently decided that the Supreme Court ruling in Colorado is not valid or whatever because conservative majority in the United States Supreme Court kind of guarantees they're going to side with the Republicans. So,
yeah, it's funny that opinion came out because Justice Amy Barrett, she essentially didn't want to even hear it, and we did hear it eventually. Obviously, the Supreme Court heard it, and I mean, when you heard at least when I read the tea leaves and kind of listened to some of the oral arguments and some of the questions that the justices were asking, it didn't seem like they were buying the argument to keep him off the ballot because, I mean, the argument was kind of weak.
I could see it either way, I guess. But
the argument was weak.
Okay.
The reason why I think the argument was weak is because they're trying to make the argument that he hasn't been convicted of insurrection, but yet we're going to keep him off the ballot for insurrection. So it was more like they're arguing just because he's being alleged as an insurrectionist, he therefore should be off the ballot. And that was a weak argument, in my opinion. It's like, if that's the case, well, everyone has been convicted.
Well, he wasn't innocent either. Like, it's just something that the court should be deciding anyways. So it's kind of.
But there was no trial. There was no trial.
Yeah, it's true.
So like they were like, so they kind of left the justices were just like opening the questions. Like, he's not convicted, and they kept asking questions like, "What is insurrection? How do you define that? Have anyone ever been, charged with that crime and actually been tried?"
There has been like congressmen. I mean, it's probably in like the 1800s and stuff, but it's happened in the United States history.
Yeah, I think most people get arrested and charged for espionage.
Yeah.
Not trying to overthrow the government. Most crimes. So I just think it was a weak argument going in there. I think if he would have been charged with insurrection
Yeah, that would be a
and
different thing. That would
that
be a
would
very clear.
yeah, if he was charged and convicted, he definitely would have been it would have been a stronger argument that he's a convicted insurrectionist and therefore he shouldn't be on the ballot.
But also, it's ironic how conservatives believe in state rights, state determination, all that sort of stuff until a state does something they don't like. Until the state
Yeah.
decides.
And I think that was why Justice Barrett didn't want to really discuss it because um, it did kind of put the justice in a pickle because they've been on a very consistent in their opinions in regards to state rights and how states have all the power and federal government doesn't really have that much power because that's a conservative viewpoint. But this one, they kind of reversed everything they were doing because they just said, well, the states can't tell the federal government what to do. So therefore, it was kind of like I guess it wasn't like a smooth analysis for them. It was like she wasn't. I didn't think she wanted to take the case up because it kind of reversed everything they were kind of saying in the court. Like it's all about state rights. Essentially, she was saying, and the court was saying with a 9-0 vote that federal trump state.
Yeah.
So she was kind of backed in the corner, and I think she didn't want to have to make that decision, but she did.
The thing is, even if any conservatives, you know, are reasonable in any decision, they have that majority. It's more than a 1 seat majority too. So
Yeah,
we're kind of screwed for quite a while. I mean, the Clarence Thomas thing is very clear. We should be able to get rid of him at this point because it's
yeah,
a clear violation of like
ethics.
ethics, very not even ethics. That's like bribery, straight up, like legislation controlled by bribery. That's something pretty clear. I mean, we do it in a covert way, which is a legal way, but like
Yeah,
you know, if you straight up bribe somebody, like not through the legal channels, it's pretty clear cut what happens, and it's the most powerful seat in the entire United States. The Supreme Court is more powerful than the presidency, in my opinion.
I will tell you something my constitutional law professor told me, and
Yeah.
I'll never forget it. The Supreme Court is powerful, but the Supreme Court doesn't have a military.
Yeah, I mean, the president on his own doesn't have a military necessarily. I mean, he's the commander in chief, but like, I don't know.
Technically, he can. A lot of people don't realize this, but the president can move the United States Marine Corps without an act of Congress.
Yeah, no, I mean they've been doing that for a while, but
Yeah. So
I guess
they're huh?
no, you're
Go
right.
ahead.
You're right.
No, I was just saying, like, yeah, the justices have power, but as long as we listen, they have power. They have no actual military. They can't enforce something they say. It's
But
just
the
more.
president can't just come to a decision in most situations that can just uniformly change the entire nation's system of laws overnight, like the Supreme
No.
Court can.
So that's what I love about this, the way our founders set this up. It's everyone can check anyone. Everyone has the ability to check it. Like if the president decides, like, I'm not gonna listen to the Supreme Court. Well, the Supreme Court could then now. It's weird because the Supreme Court could then now, like, if the president decides not to listen to him, I should take that back because the Supreme Court really wouldn't have that much power. We really have the power is Congress. If the
Well,
president
Congress is
tries,
supposed to have power, but Congress can't do
yeah,
shit. So
they can impeach him. They can
yeah,
take him out of power.
but our Congress is completely useless because it's like, yeah, functioning Congress with like a supermajority could technically achieve more things quickly than all the other branches, but like
Yeah.
with the filibuster, like ain't nothing's gonna ever pass. So it's basically a useless branch of government, especially now. The way that they've concentrated all this sort of legislative power between the majority leaders and the Speaker of the House. So it's like you can't even introduce bills. You can't do amendments to bills. You can't do shit because everything has to go through like the absolute top of the DNC or the Republican committee. It's like our legislators, individually are completely useless.
Yeah, because I
Absolutely.
get,
Sorry,
yeah,
go
I
ahead.
agree with you. No, I just agree with you, man. I do think that like there's about 5, 6 people who actually run the country.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, everybody's got a little piece of it, but the majority of the decisions are made by the leaders of each party.
Yeah, so you have your Speaker of the House and your president, and then you have your Senate Majority Leader,
Hmm.
that's three, and that's kind of it. Those are the only 3 people that really run the country. I
At least
mean,
domestic policy wise.
even foreign policy wise,
I
I
mean,
mean,
the Secretary of State. I mean, did they actually do anything, or do they just sort of visit with?
no, they kind of just the president kind of knows. He
Yeah.
usually knows who that Secretary of State is and what their policy are, so he just kind of handpicks someone that's like will do what he
Yeah,
would do. So it's really the only 3 people. There's really 3 people running the country,
that's fair.
and it's like because think about it. I mean, if you're in the Speaker of the House,
And even
yeah,
no, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I would say even if you're Speaker of the House, you have 100 some congressmen that listens to you, but you don't know their names. It's like
Yeah, maybe
you
not. Yeah,
think you think the Speaker of the
especially
House.
especially
Say
Nancy
what?
Pelosi. There's no way.
Yeah, there's no way they don't know their names. That means that you're insignificant to a lot of them when they get there in the congressional seat. A lot of them don't even have power because people don't even know who they are
People
until
get
they get
tiny
to.
little committee seats, and then committees are everything's controlled by leadership, anyways. And leadership is
Yeah,
controlled by uh,
yeah,
the DNC board, which is controlled by the donor class. So at the end of the day,
yeah,
it's like what's more electorally viable, and
yeah.
let's just
It's just
aim towards that. That's all the politics is at this point. Let's
yeah,
capitalize on our opponents flopping in this situation. Blah 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 blah. Let's not actually pass anything. Let's just run on opposition.
yeah, exactly. I mean, for me, it's a quarter. If you look at a quarter, it's 2 faces. There's the tail side and the head side normally, but at the end of the day, a quarter is still a quarter, still 25 cents,
Yeah.
and that's what the party's becoming. They're becoming a heads and a tails. It's still the
Hmm.
same policies. We just say it a little bit different.
Well, I
You
mean, the
know.
same policies are the one are passing, or at least staying in the status quo. They might
Yeah.
capitalize and argue about completely opposite positions, but at the end of the day, the things they agree upon are the only things that actually pass our legislature, like foreign policy bills, overall omnibus spending packages, and stuff like that that fund the military. There's all sorts of things that just sort of pass every single year without any sort of question. Funding
Yeah.
to Israel, all this sort of stuff, and you know, all the other stuff is like a real hit or miss, like mostly misses, and occasionally they'll get just enough. They'll get one extra vote to pass the infrastructure package. Like this is it's completely functionless. That's why they have to every single time just pack all this stuff into a giant package, and you got to either vote or not vote because like that's the only way they can get
Yeah.
all sort of legislation passed at the end of the day.
Exactly.
There's
I
so
mean,
much. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, like you say that you bring up a good point. It makes me think about Mitch McConnell and how he just recently just gonna step down
Yeah.
after the end of his term.
Finally.
So yeah, right. He's like I don't know how old he is, like in the 80s, I think.
I think he
Um,
has a 8% approval rating, something like
in,
that.
In Kentucky,
Yeah,
he's from
I think
Kentucky,
I
right?
think it was Kentucky. Yeah,
Yeah,
8%.
he's from Kentucky. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's too bad, and he's been there forever. And I know he's like losing his mental, so I can't. I'm not gonna talk bad about him, but
Ah, you should definitely talk bad about him. He doesn't deserve it.
no,
Just
no, I'm
even
not gonna.
even Nazis, mentally degenerate at some point, probably earlier than most. So
Yeah. No, no, I'm not gonna talk bad about him because
come on,
I
he's a
I
Confederate
wish
Mitch.
not now. I will talk bad about his policies. I do think
Oh
his
sure,
policies are very demonic in
but he's
nature.
you got to be a
But
demonic person to stand in front of those demonic policies. You know what I mean? Don't feel bad. We're
exactly,
talking bad on bad people.
no, I feel bad talking about a man that is losing his mental,
Yeah,
mental
his
stability.
problem, his problems, the problems with Mitch McConnell is not because he's mentally deficient.
Yeah.
His problems started far before that.
Well, yes. But yeah, so yeah, he's leaving, and so that's going to leave a power vacuum in the Senate.
Yeah,
Granted, the Senate it's a slim majority we have, so it's not necessarily that I'm concerned about, him, anybody coming in policy's position swaying, the Republican Party in a different direction because they tend to be moderates in the Senate. Um, the crazy
yeah,
ones are usually in the House.
yeah. I agree.
Um,
Do we know
but
who? Do we know who the potential next majority leader is going to be?
well, let me see. I'm
Like
put
we
the
don't
list
know.
here.
Do we have any inclination,
Well,
indication?
well, it's majority of his staff, the people in second and third command to the seat. That was kind of who was saying we should see them right now. It looks like there's
Like it'd
three
probably be the
guys.
majority whip or something like that.
Yeah, so right now John Thune from South Dakota is one of them.
Oh, he's probably going to be the majority leader. I mean, I don't know. Do they do a? I feel like they kind of do
Um,
like an age thing, not an age thing, but a tenure thing when it comes to majority leaders. But John Thune
mhm.
is super like. I think that he just got voted like the most handsome man in Congress or something like that. Like I could see them having him as the face of their party or something. You know,
I just think being from South Dakota is going to be a tall order.
being
It's
from
like
South Dakota in the
it's from
Republican Party. You know,
yeah, it's a tall order. I mean, Kentucky was a stretch, but Kentucky's still on the East Coast. I'm not saying that we have an East Coast bias in America,
well,
but we generally do.
I mean, if it's for the Democrats, then that might be how they see things. The Republicans so they
Yeah.
pride themselves. Like, I'm the most rural. I'm from the most rural place imaginable. That's how they come across as like folksy or whatever. I don't think that they need to be from a large
Well,
metropolitan area to be like a Republican representative.
no. I'm not saying they have to be in a large metropolitan area, but what I'm saying is that they have to be from a populous state. you know,
Why do you
like a
think that
state that
though?
has like because when you're, I tend to think that positions should prepare you for the next position. If
That
you're in a
what should?
position where you're going, like if you're
I'm
in a
sorry.
current position, it should prepare you for the next position.
Well, wouldn't that
So if
imply that the majority whip should be the most prepared person?
yeah, majority rip because he would have the experience to
Yeah.
get
So
to the next level.
John
But I'm
Thune.
not gonna rule out people who, yeah, I'm not gonna rule out people who don't have that kind of senior leadership
Sure.
experience.
Yeah.
Especially if they come out from like a populated state like Florida or California, because those states, you're still in charge of a large electric of people, and I think that bodes well in terms of when you're trying to govern, 300 million people, because you are in charge of policy in the country and you are going to be governing those people. So
Yeah, but
it's
being in the
important
Senate,
to
the
have
whole
that kind of
point of the
experience.
Senate is it doesn't have to represent the population size. You know what I mean? What the senator
It
from
doesn't, but
Wyoming, senator from Wyoming has just as much power as the senator from California. That's kind of like
yeah,
the whole.
but when you look at the infrastructure of the economies, it's very different. So when you're populating a state like Florida or California or New York, you have rural areas, you have industrial areas, you have areas that are in the metropolitan area that we talked about earlier. You
Yeah,
have more of a different graphic of different industries that kind of drive the gears of America. So I think that's great when you have a big state, and you come from a big state because it gives you that you know it helps you. Sorry, I was reading the comments. It helps you when you have a big state because what happens is you have those different industries. You know how they interact. Kind of policies driven to kind of effectuate real policy changes to have the most impact in the country. Now, when you come from small states, it's really hard because usually it's one thing that's driving the economy. It's not a multiple. It's not a multifaceted economy, and so that's why my position is that I prefer someone from a more populated state than a
Well,
non-populated
no, I
state.
totally agree with that. You would prefer, and I think that's my whole point. Is like this is
Yeah,
like that's like a Democratic thinking.
yeah,
Democrats who think about this kind of thing, like who's most representative, who represents the working class, who would understand the material interests of the everyday man. Blah, blah. Republicans don't give a shit about that. They love posture. They're all blue
yeah,
collar, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, they always represented business interests, whether they're
yeah,
in rural Nebraska or they're a New York City, Staten Island Republican. At the end of the day, they represent the same policies, which is just deregulation of you know the corporate boards and stock trading and that kind of shit, and deregulation of when it comes to controlling the power of pharmaceutical industries and all this sort of lobbying, all this kind of stuff. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter where you're from. Especially, it doesn't matter to the Republican Party. It matters to them what interests you represent, and if you're going to toe the party line, and if you're loyal to Trump, and if
yep,
you're loyal to the donor class, and all this stuff, all combined. That's what they care about. And also they wouldn't mind if you're voted the most handsome guy in Congress, and you can maybe convince some people who are not very politically educated that maybe the Republicans have some riz or something like that.
I
I
don't
could see
think
that.
so. I never heard of John Thune.
Oh no, I've heard of him. I mean, he's about
I
as I
mean,
mean, he's not majorly popular, but at
I
the end
mean
of the
that
day,
means he doesn't. That means he
did you?
doesn't. He doesn't have to. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, have you heard of? Did you hear of that when something Mike Johnson before he became the Speaker of the House?
I've heard of him when he became speaker. I haven't heard of him since.
So maybe that again it doesn't matter. Name recognition doesn't matter,
No,
especially
I
when
mean,
you're guiding from within.
yeah, it's your colleagues that matter when you're in the inside. But in terms of giving them riz, I don't think so. I don't think they give them
Oh,
any
he's
riz.
got riz. He's got more riz than the average Republican, at least, which is a low
I,
bar.
I don't like Wamasami, but I think Wamasami probably has more riz than a lot of Republicans,
Too
and
bad
I
he
don't
ain't
like
an
him like
option.
that.
He is
Right?
not in the Senate. That's what I'm saying. John
uh,
Thune's the shiniest piece of shit. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't know what John Thune stands for.
Just because
Who is
oh, he just
this?
what does he stand for, bro? He stands for every other conservative value that they all agree with at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's probably conservative when it suits them. Um, so we have John Corn of Texas, who's
Yeah,
also a nominee. And
he would be like the um, Kevin McCarthy choice, and Republicans hate him.
mm-hmm.
But he endorsed Trump just like the rest of them. He's considered like the devil of establishment Republicans. Like he's just sort of when they all talk about draining the swamp, he's the beltway, you know, liberal Republican that they in their eyes, you know what I mean? But he's
Yeah,
just the Republican in reality. Just because he represented like the more 2010s, early 2000s style of republicanism that makes him like super liberal to them. So they're
yeah.
they probably wouldn't like him.
I mean, I wonder if Mitt Romney's still gonna think about retiring, even with this news, because he'd be a good choice.
He
Black
couldn't get
horse,
support.
but him and Trump would be so at odds. I don't think it would
Oh
work.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. The party's left Romney behind. I feel like
Yeah,
Romney's more likely to endorse Biden than he is Trump. I actually have
yeah.
heard some sort of interview where he said something
He
similar
might.
and adjacent to that.
Yeah. Oh, your last candidate. His name is John Barrasso.
I think he's from Wyoming, maybe.
He is
He's the
from Wyoming. He's
That's
gonna need a
about
better.
as much as I know about him.
Yeah, he's gonna need a better name than that, or find a nickname because
Yeah.
that last name was terrible. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's and
those are your
that
candidates.
gives me a good realization. I was about to say like Wyoming ain't shit as a state either, but like you forget that Dick Cheney was also the representative from Wyoming, and I think he was the Senate Majority Leader at some point too. Am I wrong? I could be wrong.
I don't know. I didn't know Dick Cheney outside the vice presidency. I know
I
he
have to
was
look it up.
obviously he was in Congress, but his name to fame was for me the White House. I mean, I didn't really know who he was prior to the White House.
I tweeted recently. I'm like, isn't it crazy how we basically went 8 years of Dick Cheney being the president? Nobody really talks about it because everybody knows that Bush was kind of like just the face, and Dick Cheney made all the decisions, or at least he was
Yeah,
manipulative in a way that convinced George Bush to just go along with whatever he wanted. Yeah, okay, he was the
exactly.
House Minority Whip, Secretary of
That's pretty
Defense,
high.
H.W. Bush too. But okay, I take it back. He wasn't the majority leader, but you still
It's
get my
funny.
point.
Yeah, I was just reading. Someone says who's next on the car list. Who's next on the list of Karl Rove? Is very true. He's like the kingmaker of the Republican Party.
Yeah, there's a
Um,
handful of like Bush's inner circle that were. That's something that's gonna be very interesting to me. I don't know. There was something real shady going on in the early 2000s when with Republican politics. Like that was a different style of corruption. Trump's corruption is so like cartoonish and so like
yeah, some
I don't
things you
know.
never thought would happen in real life. It's very
Yeah,
reality TV,
no.
right?
You can't even
Very reality
believe
TV.
everything that's happening. It's so like blatant. It's like you can't believe that so many people don't see it. Like
Yeah,
so many people, like 100 million or 80 million something people are blinded by this man.
seriously. So speaking of Trump, but not speaking of Trump, I seen that spending bill got passed this weekend. Which is kind of cool. Or keep the
Yeah,
government open for
was that the
for
foreign
more.
aid one or was that I've been working
No,
on?
no, it's a spending bill. That's a natural. I don't want to come up
Oh,
every year to
the
fund
one
the
that
government.
the one they would have a government shutdown usually about.
Yeah, they do it. They just do it for posturing. I
Oh yeah,
mean, and yeah, it was about time for them to kick it down the road again.
yeah.
So they got it passed for I don't know how long this was lasted, maybe a week or two, or I don't know if this is a permanent one.
Let me guess. They increased the foreign policy budget.
Of course, it's always an
Probably
increase.
nothing else. Maybe border security or something.
Oh, this is for the year. Yeah, they're gonna pass a spending bill for a whole entire year this year.
Yeah.
They always do it in March. They always set October, November. They always go into battle with each other. Like, we're gonna do it. By the time March comes around, they come back with the bill. That's more money than it was last time, and they
And then
always find a way.
Republican voters are pissed that like Republicans passed it at all. And they're like, "You're a
Exactly.
liberal. You passed a spending bill." Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And then you know what happens? They always give themselves a pay increase in it. It's like, let's see. All right. Let's see what's in the spending bill. All right. 2.7 billion was in supplemental emergency funding, what goes towards domestic production of high-C, low-enriched uranium. This is for fuel they need to power advanced reactors.
So for nuclear weapons.
Pretty much. That was a nice
Yeah.
way of saying that.
Yeah. We're preparing.
Yeah, like always. EPA got some money,
Okay.
9.2 billion.
Thank
Yeah.
God we're saving the planet
I'm sorry.
for green energy, $8 billion at a time.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Nuclear energy got 50 billion.
Nuclear energy? That's
Yeah,
dope. We need some
50
nuclear
billion.
energy. That's like it's like the most fuel efficient way, and it's like the least environmentally dangerous way possible. It just sounds really scary because of like 3 leaks that have ever happened, which are very consequential. But at the
Yeah,
end of
they're a
the
pretty
day,
big deal.
it's at the end of the no, but in the end of the day, like almost no environmental impact whatsoever. Majority of nuclear reactors, more than a majority, almost every single
Yeah,
one, because there's so many cause safes or whatever they're called. There's so many precautions taken to,
they
you know,
are. I mean, it just sucks when a disaster happens and it's really bad.
Yeah, but
There's nothing to avoid it.
it's still like it's so much better than having coal reactors and you know the fossil fuels constantly burning and drilling for oil and all that stuff. It's so much more environmentally catastrophic than just building nuclear reactors. Like I think France was like 60 or something like 60-70% entirely run by nuclear energy. Like it's a
Yeah.
way more environmentally friendly way of doing things.
Jesus. Well, I'm not too sure about it. I mean, I think it's good for the environment. I mean, there's a lot of dangers in it still. I mean, doing it.
The real dangers I see is if Russia decides to bomb our nuclear reactors, or you know what I mean, like our they're just
Yeah.
like let's bomb these nuclear power plants, and then all of a sudden there's just leakage everywhere. Like unless that happens, they're not gonna have
Mhm.
a problem. They're not gonna have a mistake. You know the thing that happened with Chernobyl was like Soviet Russia in the 1980s. Like dog.
Yeah, but it
Like
was
there's a
really bad.
lot of mistakes they made before they got to that point, and it was very fixable in comparison to how impossible it is for any sort of leak to happen now.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So I ain't tripping over nuclear energy causing any problems. It would
Uh,
be almost a net positive entirely.
I don't know. I guess because I was around Chernobyl. Like I said,
Yeah,
Chernobyl.
the
Yeah. Since I was around it, I mean, I just kind of like I get a little afraid of it. But you're right. The technology is there. I mean, it's more efficient and it definitely makes the environment more cleaner.
yeah.
But I still very worried of it because
Yeah,
I
I mean the data is clearly in favor of nuclear energy, and the honestly the only thing holding people back is fear, which
yeah.
is
Well,
fair.
of
You know what
course.
I mean? We don't have a lot of trust in the world in general.
Nah.
Probably
All right.
shouldn't.
So let's go back to this budget. All right. So the Interior Natural Resources, which is like the Fish and Wildlife Services, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, the Geological Survey, um, Wild Horse and Burro Program. I don't know what that is, but apparently they got roughly like looks like about $1 billion.
Who did?
Uh, it was Interior and Natural Resources. So like all the think of all the your rangers, your
Oh,
forest fire
okay, that
rangers.
makes sense.
Yeah, those people.
National forests and stuff.
Yeah, agriculture got 26 billion. Transportation got 106 billion. Um, this will hire 1,800 new air traffic controllers. Let's see, commerce and justice science. NOAA will get 5 billion. Military construction, veteran affairs. They'll get about 634 million for, I guess, energy enhancements. So that's our
A lot of the
government spending.
day-to-day functioning aspects of our government that need to be funded every single year. Nothing
Yep.
interesting, nothing new.
No,
Just
this is politics.
yeah.
That's all that is.
The only thing that we've already
But it
agreed
happened.
funding. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What are you saying?
I don't know. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying it needs to be done. We need obviously, people have to get paid, and resources need to be brought in to help these organizations. So, I mean, it's crucial. We have the conversations, you know, but like it's a political football. They only talk about it so they can say the other side spends too much money, the other side spend less money. But at the end of the day, all these resources are something that they really the change. It really doesn't change much. Every year the budget has includes kind of the same old pork belly, um, prep willy stuff for each state, and the reality is it will pass, and we just gotta live with it. I know a lot of people, and I'm gonna talk for a little bit, but I know a lot of people make a big deal about us, spending too much money. At the end of the day, we print it anyway, so it's not like it's not. I understand people worry about inflation, um, but inflation is caused, in my estimates, when too much of the population has too much money. That's really what causes inflation.
Hmm.
When you a bill like this, which is very selective of what's getting money, who's getting money, doesn't really inject too much in the inflation battle because the resources are already been accounted for in the budgets that these people submitted to Congress
Yeah.
prior to them approving the bill.
I think the
So
inflation
it's
thing isn't as much as because people have too much money, as much as it's too few people are making the decisions when it comes to price setting. Because at the end of the day, inflation isn't because there's too much money in circulation, as people assume. It's because there's too much purchasing power in, or it's like an increase in purchasing power amongst the consumers. So if more money is in
of course,
circulation and gets in the hands of the people who want to spend in certain industries, then the certain industries have a higher demand. You know what I mean? So then they increase the
yeah,
supply, and then they can charge high different prices and stuff like that. At the end of the day, it is a decision made by people who change the prices, and they react to market forces. But when market forces are decided by these giant companies that can control the markets fundamentally because of sort of corporate profits or corporate subsidies,
yeah,
then it's kind of, it does ultimately come down to people who have too much money, and those are the people that make all the decisions, and they only make decisions in their own favor. So
yep,
most problems stem from the same issue, which is power in the hands of too few people who aren't accountable to the rest of the people.
yeah, yeah. I mean that you summed it up very well. I mean, and that's what really inflation is. It's about people being too greedy and price gouging
Yeah.
so that they can make the max amount of profit while the money's there.
So the best way
What
to
end up happening?
increase or to reduce the stagnancy and the power between the working class and the people that set prices is to actually spend
Mhm.
money on the working class, increase their own you know power in comparison to the price setters, and have more competitive businesses against the large corporations and stuff like that. It's everything we're fighting for all at the same time. So we can't be like, well, let's just hold back on spending, and that's going to cause no problems, when everybody knows that spending is integral to the growth of the US economy. If we
Yeah,
stopped spending, then like we would have stagflation, and you know the entire economy would collapse, because the United States relies on an inflation of between 3 to 4%, which is exactly where we're at. We're an incredibly healthy rate of inflation right now. People
yeah.
Republicans
I think
don't think it's any different than it was 2 years ago. Go ahead, sorry.
no. I think no. I just think the COVID rush kind of the demand was just so abruptly stopped during COVID
Yeah.
to bring in all that demand back up with very little supply
Hmm.
was extremely hard for the companies to just push it out,
Exactly.
and
Prices
so
had to
that
go up
really
because, you have to reduce the amount of demand that people have by, creating roadblocks by increasing the prices. You know what I mean? Less people are going to want to buy shit from you, and it'll match your supply. Then you won't have, shortages. So it just makes sense to maximize your profits that way. It's just business,
yeah,
but it's still, at the end of the day, it's not good for the US economy for a majority of people when that gets out of hand. It's just the people that actually earn the profits of the shares.
yeah. No, you're right. It's not good for the mom that has 5 children looking for bar soap or looking to buy groceries for a child.
Yeah, people are
I
being
mean,
punished, and they didn't do anything wrong.
yeah, they didn't do anything wrong, and it's just a matter of what, like you always say on the show, where it's just capital forces not really taking into account for the social impact that they have when they make these capitalistic decisions. So it is 100%, kind of your theory, and I think that, and this guy's, uh, it it is, That was, yeah, good post. Yeah, so that is generally what it is. It is getting Big Mac for $35. It's getting ridiculous. But the prices are coming down. Inflation is back to its number 3 to 4% under Joe Biden presidency. He's bringing in the inflation. We just have to continue to understand that wages need to go up now. I mean, we're not in the great resignation anymore, but wages are still not where they need to be at, and we need to get
Hmm.
that up to handle the increase in pricing that we've seen. I don't think pricing is going up anymore. I just think wages were so far below, and the prices did go up, but the wages stay where they were at, and so I think that that's the next big issue we have to face in America.
Yeah.
People are not making as much money to handle the fact that all the prices went up.
There's a lot of problems,
So
with the economy when it comes to U.S. relations with workers because workers
mhm.
don't get benefits either. Like we don't. We're one of the few countries that we don't have universal health care. Nobody has access to
Yeah,
public health care unless you're like a pregnant woman or like incredibly, incredibly poor or a child.
yeah,
Like there's no paid family leave for men or women. That's not something guaranteed by the government. There's not childcare. There's not this and that. And we don't have, until recently, like there's no protection for unionization in the country. So workers just get shut down anytime you try to like, you know, negotiate prices or not or negotiate wages rather. So it's like
yeah,
it's not a shock that the people setting wages are bulldozing over workers when there's nobody to stand
yeah,
in their way. If the majority of people are getting screwed over by this tiny amount of people in power, and
yeah.
it's not like they can't afford it. There's plenty of room in the budget for that. It's just not a priority
No,
to get away with it. Go ahead.
yeah. It's just about maximizing profit, and the union would because I worked for an organization who had a union component. I so I understood how it worked, and for me, what the union got us a lot of great benefits and were able to help us get a lot of money on our checks. And I was in one of the industries that still had unions because majority of them don't
Hmm.
anymore. Majority of industries, and I saw what it did and what they did in terms of fighting for us and our rights. And so when I hear people saying that unions are not necessary, I think that's wrong. I think unions are one of the stakeholders in any business because the reality is there's a corporate entity that management needs to think about and the board of trustees needs to think about, and then there's the human capital, which most boards don't think about, which are what drives productivity and what
Hmm.
drives products and resources and eventually profit. It's the workers, because they're the ones who provide the product and a lot of things. And so I think what happens and what we've seen happen in America is a lot of the jobs have gone overseas, and a lot of the American workers don't have they're not into making a product business anymore, and they've kind of weakened the union because of that. And so now you have a lot of employees who are like, well, we don't want to accept unions because they have the position of power,
Hmm.
because a lot of the jobs can be shipped off,
Yeah.
you know. And us as progressive, we have to start addressing that issue. The the closing of our borders, I think, is a very serious issue that we need to talk about as progressives, because for us, we have to deal with the fact that we are in open war, and I've said this a lot of times on this podcast, with China, and we don't have policies. Progressive don't have enough policies to address that open war with China. I think we are kind of letting this, you know, our domestic policy. I believe, in my opinion, the progressive domestic policy addresses a lot of issues that we have with China if we were to implement them. But I feel like we don't push that as our main argument to the masses to let them know, like, hey, we are in this open war with China, and we need to start thinking about how do we maximize the human capital? How do we support humans by giving them free education for 2 years? How do we support humans by making universal health care so they're not worried about medical bills. And then we need to start understanding that that is the conversation. We need to gear it as a war, in my opinion. And I have the military background, so I always think of things in war and combat. But in my opinion, I think that's the real war that we're dealing with. We want to have an, an economy stimulated by the human worker, and I think that that is the only way that we're going to be able to be strong in the next, like you just put on the chat, by 2050. That's the only way we're going to do it, by reinforcing progressive policies. And pretty much the progressive policy is put the human first, and that's what we do. And then it's not putting capitalism first, it's about
And it's
the
also not
human.
putting just Americans first. You know what I mean? Because I don't give a shit where you're born. Humans first. We have to prioritize American interests as an American government. But at the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
not like we need to, well, this guy was born 30 miles south of the United States. So, we need to close off the borders. And if he tries to cross this side of this land that we've arbitrarily decided is ours, then let's shoot him. Let's arrest him. Let's put him in a detention center. There's there's a dehumanization that comes along with borders.
The thing with borders is, and I've been wrestling with this issue for the last couple of weeks because I've been following what's happening in Haiti, what's happening in Cuba, what's happening in the Latin American markets, and I think that I like open borders, but I really like stability in certain borders.
Yeah.
For example, yes, American can take in as many people we want to. Republicans trying to say we don't have space. We have plenty of space. We need to, as America, decide: are we going to continue to have these closed borders and not have plans for what we do for people outside our borders? Because it doesn't make sense for us to close the borders when we know people who are struggling in Mexico, El Salvador, Nicaragua, and all these countries, and we're trying to close borders and ignore the problem that is happening in
Yeah.
Central and South America. It doesn't make any sense. You have to fix that. And so when I say closed borders, I'm talking about making economic policies based on American interest, but an American interest is also an interest of fixing other people's borders.
Yeah,
And we need to
it's
move
a
away from that.
pan-American interest. We also want our
Yeah.
trading partners to be successful. We also want,
Yes.
a overall more competitive and efficient global economy. We want the workers to be more, productive. And if they work in the United States, we have this a labor shortage, and nobody wants to work anymore. But we also need to close the borders. That makes no sense. You know what I mean?
Well, it's not. It's not about closing. See, my thing is,
I'm talking
I
about
don't think
that
that
was a
closing
Republican
borders.
talking point. But yeah.
No, I agree, but because I'm a fan of closed borders.
Closed
When you're
borders?
talking about closed borders, when we're talking about fixing our domestic issues in America, because
Is that closed borders? What do you mean by you?
so when people say closed borders, they always automatically assume immigration, like saying not allowing people in.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what that
That's not.
mean.
That's what most people take it as. When I look at closed borders, I'm talking about closed borders as to fixing our economic system with Americans. For example,
It's not really
investing.
closed borders. That's just American first, priorities, that kind of stuff. The borders,
Yes.
the actual border is who enters and who exits the country. You know what I mean?
Well, I
Just
mean,
prioritize
I don't.
within our borders.
So people keep saying closed borders. Our borders are not open.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
people. I mean, when I say closed borders, I mean by having, like you said, America first agenda, but not Trumpism,
No,
but
of
just a
course.
progressive America first agenda. The reason why I say I'm not open to open borders is because I am not a fan of us saying let's allow everyone in through the southern border and the northern border, because people smuggle through there too, but no
Yeah.
one ever talks about it. I'm not a fan of that, because I am a fan of we need to go and fix the problem in those countries.
I think it would be a
I feel
multifaceted
like
approach.
I think, well, it could be a multifaceted approach, but I
I
don't
don't
think
think
we
we
do
need
the
to
other
just
facets
like
of it.
have no system. I don't think we need no borders. Of course not. We need to have some sort of
Yeah,
facility for. I mean, because if no borders is what happens when you do that. That's what happens when Russia invades Ukraine and says, "Oh, these are Russians now." Blah 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 blah. You need some sort of
yeah,
we need borders. We need to.
yeah. We need some border.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean we
We
can't allow as many people as want to come. You know what I mean? We
well,
just need to further our mechanisms for taking that kind of capacity, having sort of certain transitional programs so they have places to stay and they can get jobs and they can do because it would be beneficial for everybody if that did happen. It's just a lot of steps and spending and any sort of spending is going to be looked down upon by both parties in some way. So it's going to be a hard thing to do to get some good immigration reform. But at the end of the day,
no,
immigration reform, making the system easier for the immigrants, is going to completely reduce illegal immigration. It's going
I think
to
my
destroy the cartel. Go ahead. Sorry.
no, I agree with you that we need to do something about immigration. But I think our first step is to fix the. I guess it's not really Mexico. I don't know. I hate when people say, "Oh, the Mexican crisis." It's not that. It's Central America and South America
I don't
and
think that's the
islands.
first step because I think that's such a big picture idea. Well, I do think that should be our priority. I don't think that's the first
Yeah.
step. First step is there's immigrants at the border today. We need to take care of that solution. Big picture, absolutely, we need to be sending a lot of focus on, uh, you know, making sure there's stability in Latin America. That's
Well, that's
absolutely too.
but that's who's on the border.
Yeah, but
That's the
that's not
problem.
necessarily
It's
the
like,
first step because there's not something we can do tomorrow to fix that problem. That's what I'm saying. Tomorrow we can have.
well, I think
Go ahead,
I,
sorry.
tomorrow. Okay, so me tomorrow you can fix DACA, right? We can fix DACA.
Yeah,
That's we can fix that
that's
tomorrow.
why
The
immigration should
stroke
be
of
the
the
first
pen.
priority. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So I agree with you on that respect. But what I'm saying is the border issue is something that has to be addressed in those Latin American countries.
Uh,
That's not something we can fix here
yeah,
because it's like we're trying to put these walls, electric walls up, and we're trying to make these aggressive immigration policies. When I say we, I say as American, but we're really talking about Republicans. They're doing those aggressive immigration stances, but these things are not really solutions. They're just used in a way to try to separate yourself to seem like I'm better than you.
yeah.
And that's why I get your position with the we should have some kind of open border. I don't use the term open border because what happens is it's saying, well, okay, let's not fix those countries. Let's just allow them to come into America. And it's like, well, that's not a solution. We can't just allow people coming in and not fixing their country so that they can stay. Because to me, what ended up happening is, are we now as Americans going to take in all of Latin America and South America, and we're just going to turn those over to gangs and allow people like
No,
countries like
it's a good
Brazil.
point.
Yeah, so it's like, no, we have to do something about it. We have, and for me, it's a solution that a lot of Americans don't want to talk about. They're just like, well, we're Americans, and those are those people problems over there. But the reason the problems are at our front door, and we can't just say we can't use the Republican approach of like, well, let's go back to a war zone
Yeah,
and gangs killing, and we can't use the some Democrats approach where it's like, yeah, we don't care, we just keep coming in. It's like, well, that's not a solution either because eventually we are going to run out of space. I'm not crazy
I
like
don't think that's
Trump,
even the
but
Democrats' position. Oh, it's okay. They can. I mean, they want
no,
people
I
to.
said, I said some Democrats. I didn't say all Democrats. I
Yeah,
said
no,
some.
I know. I'm just saying, like, I just think that that's the way the Republicans paint the Democrats. I think the Democrats want them to come in through the legal
Hmm.
pathway, but there is no process for that. So they're more concerned about the way they're treating the people that do come in because they're just people. The
Yeah.
law they're breaking is so arbitrary. The real danger is
Hmm.
the fact that they're using the means of travel, using the cartel to transport them through, who are dangerous. Only exist because we
Yeah.
allow them to exist. Essentially, we don't need to bomb the cartel or the cartel. We need to just make immigration easier so they don't rely on it. We need to starve, their funding, which is entirely based on the fact that we are hyper restrictive about the fact that people from the South are not white. This is really why. This is why
Hmm.
immigration policies exist in the first place. We used to have completely unregulated immigration in that way until I think the
Yeah.
1920s when we were trying to regulate Chinese immigration. That was literally why immigration started to be regulated, because we don't want too many Chinese people in our country anymore. There's too many of them in California, so let's make sure let's set a standard for who can enter the country. And it's completely arbitrary.
Yeah.
There's no reason why somebody who went to university in Zimbabwe is more more qualified than somebody who didn't go to college, who's in the Netherlands or whatever. Like, either way, like, they're people and they have potential and they can come to the United States and make a life out of themselves. Like, we don't need to be the ones, the arbiters of who's valuable and who's not. That's why I think immigration policies need to be less restrictive. Obviously, I'm not inviting Al Qaeda into the country. You know what I mean? It's not a zero borders. It's like very, very, very loose border policies, ones that come with easy tracking of the people who are coming in and out of the country. That's going to solve all the problems because they're going to come anyways. We already can see that because they're here. So why are we having them be untracked and undocumented? Let's just document them. That's just a way better
Right.
solution. Our way to compete with China is, we have economic power, but we're also 1/6 the size of population.
Yeah.
Imagine if we were half the size, how much more dominant
Yeah.
we'd be. We obviously have the capacity. They have the capacity. They're about the same size country physically. So, like, I don't want to hear how we don't have capacity. We have so much capacity. Like, think of Nebraska. We could throw another 8 million people there. There's so much.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that we do have to have some kind of border policy that's more in line with the 2024, 2025. It's like
Yeah.
the restrictions are not, to me, they're just convoluted.
Yeah.
It's just finding ways to keep it
It's
out.
just
No,
bureaucracy
I agree with
too.
that.
They're just all, oh, you don't have the proper paperwork, sir. You got to go stay in this detention center with, like, guards with guns are gonna watch over you. Like, it's so archaic because of
Yeah, I mean, I've
sand that somebody agreed upon based on stolen land in the first place. They found the land. They're like, this is our land. I'm going to draw a line here.
yeah. I mean, I'm an expansionist, man. I really believe in like expanding America.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very, very, very unpopular, but
I mean,
I
if they are, consenting to it, if Iceland,
yeah, but
if Greenland wants to be part of the United States, yeah, I'm down. I don't think I'm
yeah,
an
but
imperialist expansionism, but I actually am totally fine with a Greenland as the United States as a new state. You know what I mean? I'm fine with us adding Guam and Puerto Rico and Washington D.C.
yeah,
states. Absolutely, the more
me
the
too.
merrier.
Me too. I just think it's a very unpopular thing, and it's just a very unpopular for Americans. But I'm not opposed to,
True. I think it just depends on how you do it.
It's yeah, it depends how you do it. I mean, but for the most part, I don't know. I guess that'd be a dream for another day.
If they're
Speaking,
more likely to vote for Democrats, then the Republicans will oppose it. That's pretty much how it goes. I've always
pretty
talked about
much,
this on the show, how Republicans, all their talking points are just projections. Oh, we're so
yeah,
afraid of the Democrats. Clearly, their immigration is clearly about voting, and this is why they want to have immigrants come to the country, to vote for Democrats. That's clearly why. No, is that why, or is that why you don't want them coming to the country because they'll vote for Democrats? Because you're projecting,
exactly.
and your motivation for immigration is about voting, and you think non-white people aren't going to vote for the white party, and that's literally why you don't want. That's one of the main reasons you don't want non-white people into the country, because they change your voting demographic and they don't believe in your value system or your projected value system. It's just selfish. It's so selfish, and it's not like it would cost you any money if immigrants come to this country. It doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, you might make more money. It's just absolutely
Yeah,
ridiculous and selfish and it's fear based. And I
yeah. It's always fear
hope
mongering.
they do overtake the white demographic. I'm sick of this. I think a more mixed country would have a lot better voting behaviors anyways. Majoritarian countries generally have the more fascistic
I
political.
I don't.
No?
I don't even understand why they think that the white majority is gonna be. I I've I have another house in Miami.
Yeah.
You know this, um, and there's a lot of Cubans who are white.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Hispanics who are white. And so this whole
We're
like,
just
oh
all gonna
well,
end up becoming mixed, and it doesn't matter. Nothing matters.
yeah, right. It's like I
No
don't know
more
what's the
this
big deal about it.
nationalist dominance. Germans are great. French people are the best. Oh, this people no. Just how about you be
Who says French
personally
is
great
the
yourself and not lump yourself in with a bunch of other people who have nothing to do with you. We all live on the
exactly?
same ground. Who cares?
Well, with that being said, I have a couple more topics before we wrap up. Um, so we were talking about dreams earlier, and we how we wish that we'd do something about immigration plan. I think that Nikki Haley wishes that she does something epic tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and because that's interesting that I didn't know that, but
I don't know if that's true, but yeah, go on.
yeah. So I would tell you that she has a lot of dreams tomorrow. She has Alabama, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina. Where else? My thing is
Didn't
freezing.
she win DC, and that's like her only win so far, or something like that?
Yeah, yeah. That you're right. She did win
She's gonna win
DC, and
DC.
that
She's
was
gonna win Vermont, and maybe what was the other state? There's maybe one other one where she has a chance. I can't remember. Virginia, something like that. Virginia,
yeah,
she's within
Virginia.
5 points or something, but she's gonna lose the rest.
Yeah.
And she's probably. You think she's gonna drop out? I still think she's waiting around for this Trump cases to fall through, just in case.
Well, here's the thing. I think, and this is a rumor mill. Um, I think that there's talks on Friday,
Yeah,
and it so happens it's going to be on Friday that the no label party,
yeah.
is set to nominate a candidate
I thought
on
the
Friday.
Joe Manchin said he wasn't gonna run, didn't he?
He dropped
Yeah.
out. He wasn't going to run. And I see how her fundraising is going. Someone's backing her
Oh yeah, and the Koch
by a
brothers are
lot.
backing her. She's a lot of billionaire backing.
Yeah, well, they dropped her, the Koch brothers,
Did
but
they? Oh,
she still has more.
well, there's
Yeah, they
Koch
dropped
brother.
her. Yeah,
The
because
other
the other
one's
one
dead.
passed. Yeah.
Anyway,
So so the rumor is, and we'll find out by next week's show. So you guys can stay tuned because we'll let you know that they possibly thinking about endorsing Nikki Haley to run as a no label candidate.
do you think she'd do it?
I think she knows she can never win a Republican primary.
Yeah, I can see the part of her where she realizes that she's in a dead party. It doesn't exist anymore. So it's a Trump party now, and her values are
It's a
the
Trump
same
one.
as the values of the Republican Party. Not that they're good. She's terrible other
Those,
values, but
yeah,
they're different
but
Republican
she's
values.
exactly they're old guard Republicans,
Yeah,
and I think that it'd be politically very bold. No one's ever won a third party. No one ever.
yeah, and also I don't
Um,
know. I doubt they have ballot access or would be able to get it. So I don't see how she would jump in the last second into a.
they have for a lot of funding that no party, that
Funding doesn't
no label.
funding doesn't matter as much as getting signatures.
Well, a lot of these states now have fund. You can just pay in
You think so?
to get. Yeah, a lot of these states now.
Hmm.
Like in Florida, you pay like $10,000. You can get on the ballot.
Yeah, we'll
So
see.
we'll see.
Yeah,
And with
think
that,
she'll do it,
guys,
but it's possible. But anyways,
we will see. With that, guys, that is our show. We went a little bit over an hour, and we will see you guys next week
hmm
with more information about the no labels. And
I'm sure stuff's
I
gonna
said next
happen.
week.
We're gonna see something interesting this week. I can feel it. Something
I feel it. I feel it. Something epic.
something's gonna drop.
Yeah. So if you got any final goodbyes,
No, I feel like we've been covering it. I mean, I'd like to be a lot more on point next week. We're gonna be more consistent, but we're gonna have a lot of information to cover every single week. So because I don't think I've
Yeah.
had a week go by in a while where something major didn't drop every 2 or 3 days.
There's always something major, and we'll give you guys our perspective on how things go. And I mean, we want to dive deep in some topics right now. I know right now it's kind of a primary season, so we're
Yeah,
kind of like following the elections a lot.
yeah.
But as that gears down, looks like tomorrow. As that gears down tomorrow, and we will have more in-depth policy
I
conversations.
wouldn't mind
We like
having
to talk
just
about.
regular conversations too. I mean, like we don't need to talk about
Mhm.
elections every now and then. We have more interesting things to talk about too. We could just see what comes out. I think that's what's this is all about.
Yeah, and I love to have them. So, guys, we appreciate tuning in. Hope you guys imagine more, and we'll see you next time.
Everybody have a great night and morning to some of you, whenever you